The following podcast is a Live the Dream Media production.
This podcast is brought to you by Selenia's Custom Creations, your one-stop shop for promotional items. They will customize items for your next event or help you promote your business. They carry all things apparel and anything you can think of to print your logo on. Selenia's Custom Creations made beautiful Skinology Sessions t-shirts for our podcast. They're soft, they're cute, they're well made, and they shipped fast, but the best part is she is Arizona local. Follow them on Instagram and contact them for a quote at Selenia's Custom Creations LLC. Hi friends, welcome to Skinology Sessions. I'm Marielle.
And I'm Selena.
I guess things are different. We should talk about how it's a little bit different because Selena and I decided to take lead on the Skinology Sessions podcast. So we appreciate everyone who listened to season 1, and we'll definitely have Lindsay and Aliana back for a few episodes, but that's the change that we've made. So today we have an exciting episode because we have our first gentleman on the podcast, and his name is David. And I guess, are you the boss?
I am a leader here.
Okay. David is the CEO of LTD Media. So who are you?
So I'm David Samorano. I am, like you said, the CEO of LTD Media, and I am an ex-law enforcement officer. I was in law enforcement for 11 years before moving to running this company. I grew up in the community. I first lived over on the west side of Tucson, Barrio Anita, for a while.
Best side.
There's a lot of good food over there. My bike got stolen a lot, though. But
Selena lives on the west side.
Yeah. So now I've lived in Marana for a long time. I'm heavily involved in the community. A lot of involvement with the small business community and promotional stuff and advertising.
Cool. What about the early years? Tell us about your childhood.
Early years. So, I grew up on the west side of Tucson. I went to Amphi schools. I went to Keeling Elementary, and then I moved out to Pitcher Rocks, which was a huge culture shock. So I went from, kind of preppy kids, and then I moved out there, and I think it was towards the end of 4th grade, and I remember seeing this kid on the playground, and he was wearing shorts with boots, like cowboy boots, and I was like, where am I?
Is that before Picture Rocks was developed to what it is now?
Yeah, so when we moved out there, it was pretty empty still. There was a lot of land that was just untouched. But by the time I had moved out from my parents' house, it had gotten pretty thick out there as far as the manufactured home communities and stuff out there.
That makes me think of that movie, The Hills Have Eyes. Have you guys seen that movie?
It's a great place to live if you're older or trying to get away from the noise. So I know why they did that was we grew up in that area, and it was pretty bad. There was a lot of stuff that happened in that neighborhood. I mean, I remember getting just punched off my bike one time, just blatantly in the face, and they took my bike. Like, I remember seeing another kid there in the neighborhood just get beat up with a golf club. Like, it just was a crazy place. So my parents were like, all right, we need to move somewhere else where it's a lot more quiet, and we did, and that's what it was. It was very, very quiet. There wasn't a lot to do there. I mean, the roads were dirt. You couldn't really ride your bike that well out there, and there wasn't a lot of facilities to go hang out at and go. There was no community park.
So the beginning of LTD, did you always kind of have a vision for those early years?
Growing up, I always knew I wanted to do something big, something different than just going into a career field and just working through the days of that. And I always kind of felt a little different than a lot of other people as far as thinking, especially when I played sports. I kind of found that I would think about plays and stuff a little bit differently than others, as far as running the plays and things I could do. And I told my counselors in high school, I want to go study business. I'm going to go study business. So when I actually went to college, I went in as a business major.
Okay.
And I quickly learned that I didn't like all the math classes they were going to put me in, and they were just, I just wasn't feeling it. I'm like, it really kind of, I felt really structured on the thinking thing. So I was like, yeah, I don't know. And then um, I had a couple police officers in my life when I was younger that mentored me, and they coached me in football, and I always kind of had an interest in their life. So I ended up going on a ride along with one of them, and I was kind of hooked. I was like, wow, this is intense. This is fun. And then so I switched to criminal justice studies, and I did that and ended up going into the prison system as a correctional officer for 4 years, and then I went to the streets after that as a police officer for 7 years.
And what was the hardest part of being a police officer when you were in the academy?
The academy in general was so hard, so hard. I mean, the first week, it's like Survivor. You guys seen the show Survivor? So the first week, they are trying to get rid of the weak, and they push you physically and mentally to just experiences that really, really display where you're at. And physically and mentally. Like, they will see your weaknesses. They will see, and everybody in your class sees. So not only you're building a reputation with those around you too. They'll see, like, if you're trying to cower on an exercise or something they're putting you through, they're gonna see it. So that first week is just horrible. They make us fight each other. Like, we beat each other up. Like, we have to work out and then we fight each other. And
But you did prison before police?
Mhm.
The prison has you do that too, though, right?
They do.
Yeah.
But not as intense.
Not as intense? Oh,
No.
that's interesting.
Yeah, so the prison is condensed into, when I went, I think it was 9 weeks. The police officer training is double that.
Okay. So you kind of you went from college where it's a mental challenge, and then you went to the prison, and it gave you the other. Do you think those two both prepped you for the police academy then?
Yeah. I think a lot of stuff prepped me for that. I think playing football in sports in high school had a lot to do with that too. Because in football, and I did football, soccer, and track, and one thing they all had in common, they had these things called Hell Week, which was kind of like the same thing but in a nicer way. Like, they would just do so much conditioning to see who was going to work through it and see who the leaders were and see who were the player, like the really good players were and stuff. So I think that stuff prepped me for that as well.
And during that time, were you in the best shape of your life? I imagine so. During the police academy.
Yeah. That was probably the second best shape I was. So when I went to college, I actually went because I got a football scholarship out of high school, and my first year there, I got in really, really good shape. But they had me on a diet plan, and it was pretty structured. And but no, as far as conditioning wise, I would say condition wise, as far as running, because we were running 7 miles, doing push-ups, running up towers. They have this tower that's there that everybody has to run up and down for hours. And yeah, so best condition I was in that time.
I feel like you, Selena, can identify with all of this because I think of you as an athlete because you work out all the time, right? And the mental aspect of it as well.
Yeah, kind of like you. I started young. I think my parents had me throwing a baseball before I learned to walk. So just being in baseball and then volleyball and basketball and track, they do mentally prepare you for the stress of life and the stress of jobs.
Yeah. I think competition is super important for success. Knowing how to compete.
In a healthy way.
Yeah, because you can be super talented and the greatest on earth as far as, measurements and everything. But if you can't compete, it doesn't matter. It really won't. So you'll see people that are average talent or, somebody, I know we've all seen an athlete, you look at them and go, that person did that. A perfect example would be Steve Nash, right, who played for the Suns. On paper, if you took his measurements and everything, he's really not somebody that would be heavily drafted or scouted, but he was phenomenal as a player. And it's just because he could compete. He could compete so well.
Well, and then it teaches you about failure. How many times as a kid did you trip over the hole in the outfield, but you missed the ball and you got yelled at, but the next one you knew, okay, I got to pay attention to the field so that I can't fail, or striking out. There's stuff like that they teach you to get back up.
Absolutely.
Don't
yeah.
give up.
Yeah. No, that's a great way to put it. You learn so much from the failure you experience, and something like that, like that's another variable you have to consider in what you're doing because they're always going to be coming at you from every angle.
So at what point did you meet Clint? And at what point did you guys begin the LTD Media project?
So I met Clint in 2016, and he was volunteering with my parents together. They were volunteering at some like food or vegetable thing, and they got to talking about music. And Clint was very adamant about starting a music venue and a music studio. And my pops knew that I was doing music at that time, and he's like, "Hey, you should talk to my son." So one thing led to another. We ended up talking, communicating. I saw his vision, and I was like, I'm in. Let's go. So back in 2016, we started doing things for the music studio and the music venue. I just volunteered a lot of time trying to help build it. And, you know, the pandemic came and things really changed. The music industry's kind of been in shambles as far as
Shows.
monetary things that are available, shows. So we came up with the concept of using all the tools and everything that were here to build a media company, a broadcast media company, and social media and all that stuff. We had cameras, we had the microphones that we're using here from the studio time. Now we have a podcast network, and your program is the leading program on it. So it's like, everything kind of just started working out in that way. And I'm going to use the word, I guess I'll say pivot. We pivoted, for what happened. And I think it's transpired into this great thing that we have here.
I think Clint too, I'm sure you just met him. And for those of you that don't know, Clint is the owner of LTD Media and a few other businesses here in Tucson. But I'm sure you met him, and were you just like mind blown? Because he's got so many ideas, and he's just like, he thinks big picture.
His charisma and his ambition, and then his big picture, for sure. The conversations we have every day are a lot of big picture stuff. And so people will see us do things and kind of go, well, why are they doing that? You know what I mean? But it's not because it's not fitting for right now.
Yeah.
Right now was yesterday. Like for us, that's a thing in the past. When you see things happening, we're already thinking about down the road.
Sure.
How can we do something? And it doesn't always work out. That doesn't mean that we're like these experts and this is going to happen. And, there's a lot of times we crash and burn,
Yeah,
but
it doesn't work out.
we still like to work ahead of things.
Well, when you and I chatted about season 2, I said to you, here's what I see for the entire 12-month period.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, let's just talk about season 2. Because I kind of do the same thing that Clint does. I'm like, here's the big picture. Here's what's projected over the next 12 months.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I like that about Clint.
Yeah, I've learned that. I've noticed that about you too, that you're a big picture and you talk about doing things down the road and of course the podcast thing. And it's always good to and we do that with each other. We'll hone each other in sometimes when we're like, hey, maybe we should start here. Let's ground right here.
Let's
for a
go
little
back.
bit.
Yeah, bring it back down a notch.
Yeah, it happens often, and sometimes it's exterior stuff. Like it'll be our wives or somebody will walk in and be like, hey, that might not be a good idea, and this is why. And we go, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
How did you learn to podcast or build websites and social media? Was it something that you learned as you went, or had you been researching prior to moving into it?
So a lot of it's self-taught. The audio stuff I learned self-taught. I recorded music for probably 14 years. I started with just a little laptop and a USB mic, and I progressed in building audio stuff. And then website stuff I learned and taught myself to help with a couple different companies that Clint had that he owns, like Copper Creek Cookies and stuff like that. I did a couple websites and I was like, man, this is fun. So then I've just continued to learn and do trainings on building them. So it's not my favorite thing to do, but it's something that I do know how to do.
And at one point you were doing both, right? Like you were trying to get LTD Media up and running, and you were still doing your police work. So what kind of schedule did you have then, and how did that work?
It was chaotic. It was, so I was working 40 plus hours at the PD, and then there was oftentimes I didn't have a day off. So it was just go, 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 go. If I wasn't at work, I was here doing something, building something, figuring things out, trial and error. we did a lot of practicing before we were like, let's go. And we still practice a lot, but it was chaotic. It was hard on the family. It was well, yeah. My family definitely was like, you disappeared, and my wife was it was hard on her.
And she was pregnant at the time? Was it?
For some of it, yeah,
Yeah.
she was, and that's when we started having some deep conversations about what are you gonna do? Are you gonna continue to work that hard, or be gone that much? Like, and that's why some life changes occurred.
So, what did Alex say when you told her this was going to be your full time thing? Was it a scary conversation or was it something that she was on board with?
Yeah, I think change is scary anytime you're talking about changing your financial situation completely, and change itself can make you think about all these bad things that can happen. And what we learned in that, and she did a really good job, is she was very analytical and brought up what could happen, and we talked about solutions to stuff. And she's an accountant by trade, so she crunched the numbers for us. We went over all of our financial stuff, and she's like, yeah, we can do this, and she was confident that we'd be able to do it, and she had my back. So I'm blessed to have somebody like that.
That's amazing.
Now I'm going to tell you, there were conversations that were, are you sure? Like, there's definitely the doubting questions that come up, and that's to be expected. It's hard to swallow when it's said and when you hear it, but you have to be able to have an answer for those questions, like those doubting questions. Well, what are you going to do if it don't?
And were you already feeling like this was your place to be, or were you still kind of mixed?
No, I knew there was no doubt in my mind this is where I needed to be, and it really showed up. So when the wife went on maternity leave, um, I joined her and took some time off. And during that time off, I started doing more of the business. I did some website builds and a couple of things for some local businesses here. And the amount of money I pulled in that 1 week from those jobs was almost what I made in a month as a cop. And I was like, that's interesting.
And it's satisfying too,
Yes,
right?
it was, because
it's your own.
you're creating value out of, basically you could essentially just say you just created this idea and you put some systems to it and some ways of doing it, and you created value, and I put the price on it, right? Like
Sure.
I did some research, and I'm like, hey, this is kind of where the market's at, but I priced it and I told the people, hey, this is how much it is, and they're like, okay.
I think it's a powerful thing to be like, this is what I'm worth, and this
Mhm.
is what I'm expecting to get paid.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're a business owner, and value goes up. I mean, if you're doing things right,
Sure.
essentially things go up, and it gets harder for people to get a hold of you as far as price range, because you've developed that value. So it was interesting from when I started to how things are now priced. It's night and day. So, but it's still cool.
What's your favorite part of the LTD media?
I get to work with brilliant people, motivated people, and I think that my favorite part is coming up with ideas and new ways to create revenue, and get other people involved and help other people. Our mission is essentially to serve other people. I mean, that's the more people you serve, the more value you're going to have.
It's true.
So, and I think everybody here, including the people, listeners don't know. I mean, Nadeda's here. She's doing all the audio stuff. She's phenomenal. And then I have Julian, who's an intern, who's unfortunately leaving after this week, but he graduated college and he's going to the big leagues now. So, but having people like that, I think, is the best part. It's definitely the people.
Tell us about your involvement with Skinology Sessions, the
Mhm.
project, and just your thoughts overall.
So my involvement. So, if I remember right, you had asked for a meeting for something else, right?
Yeah,
Before
we were doing our grand opening.
yeah. Which was crazy because before we met to talk about Skinology, the team here was talking about how we wanted to incorporate an all women's podcast. There wasn't a lot of women podcasters in the area that we knew of, and that we wanted to kind of just get this trend going. Like let's make this happen. And we were kind of dead in the water at that point, looking for talent. Like we put a couple posts out and sent some emails and stuff looking for talent, and then we met with you, and you're like, "Yeah, we want to do a podcast." I'm like,
Well, they met with us
"Whoa!"
and we're like, we're planning this grand opening. And by the way, I have this other project that we've been thinking about.
Yeah,
And I feel like it was really Selena and Lindsay that wanted to do this podcast. You guys had been talking about it for a while,
Yeah,
right?
for a few years, we would be having really deep conversations in between clients and be like, we need to share this. Like, more people need help with life and through hard moments. Like, we need to do it. And I guess you had met with Marielle, and she surprised us at a dinner. And it was totally not what any
Yeah.
of us expected.
Because I'd been telling the
Nice.
ladies no. I'm like, no, we're not taking one more thing on. No way. It's going to be a lot of work. I'm not going to do that. And then I don't know. I guess it was just like a switch. You guys made me feel comfortable and confident, and we had the studio, and I just woke up and decided we were going to do it.
yeah,
And then I told you guys, and y'all were on board.
yeah.
So
You know, my thoughts on it are you can't deny that you guys have the strongest audience of all the podcast programs that are there right now, and I think it's because we did identify something that was missing in the area, and I think that you guys have created an avenue for people to go to get through hard times, to hear stories and information that they need at that time, whether it's beauty related or as far as a life struggle or something that's been processed and gone through by somebody. And I think you guys are doing a great thing. That's my legit thoughts on that.
cool. Thank you for the compliment. What would be your top 5 tips for somebody that's starting a podcast?
Research, number one. Research. It's imperative for you to find out information about what you're going to be talking about and who you're going to be talking with. The next one would be familiar with the equipment you're using. You can get electrocuted.
Whoa.
You can blow stuff up. You could blow your eardrums up, right, Nereda? Right? Yeah, there's dangers to it. So know the equipment that you have. Julian taught us some stuff here about some of the equipment we have as far as microphones and what they do and how dynamic they are. And so knowing your equipment's good. Number 3 is be aware of your linguistic ability, or how well you are talking, how you can articulate things. If you're not very versed at it, practice. And it's okay if you're not like super badass at it. Just practice and practice talking to yourself. I know it sounds weird and
Was
kind
there
of.
something you noticed after hearing yourself on on your first few podcasts where maybe you said "and" 500 times?
Yeah. Yeah. And I still struggle with it, so I try to not do it as much anymore, but it still happens, and I do it in conversations with people. I'll be like, and
Yeah.
it's just, and they don't know, I can't be saying to everybody, they don't know, but so yeah, those kind of things. So yeah, listen to yourself, and number 4 would be have a good space to do it. Right? If you're doing it at home, make sure that people aren't come barging in on you if you're half an hour into a podcast, because now you're going to either have to edit a bunch of stuff or you're going to get upset, and it kind of can just change everything for you. And the next thing would be, this kind of goes with researching, but know your audience. What demographic are you after? Like, where are you trying to be heard? Who are you trying to influence? What's the objective of the podcast? That's a huge thing, because people be like, oh, we just want to do a podcast, and then people aren't going to really just want to hear you talk. They want to hear
Value.
Yeah, there's got to be something to it. One of the biggest industries right now is personal growth and self-help. So if you're trying to get into that market, you're not going to be talking about how angry you were with the Karen that was at Fry's today, right? Like, no one.
Well, and it doesn't serve anyone any good to put that type of negativity out.
Exactly. So yeah, just knowing all that stuff is very important.
I think sound quality is really important. That was one of the main things that I was concerned about. I wanted it to sound really good.
Yeah.
And we thought about maybe doing it at home or at the studio, but I just thought having a space to be able to create this would be ideal for us, and it's worked out.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, it has, because we're businesses, we're moms. It's easy just to have a time frame,
Mm-hmm.
come in, record, and
Yeah.
then go ahead and leave.
Yeah. I totally agree. Totally agree.
And so I'm going to take you back to the police academy real fast.
Mhm.
And do you miss anything about it? Do you have days where you're like, I miss that feeling, or I I miss the people, or something in that sense?
Every day.
What do
Yeah.
you miss?
Um. So I did See that? See, damn it. The adrenaline. I won't deny that there's adrenaline rushes you get. I'll see one of the units, Marana police units going up and down the road like their lights on or something. I'm like, oh man, I miss that. That's awesome. They're going. It's just I can't explain it. It's like the ticket to the best show in the world. It really is. I mean, you see some crazy stuff, but you see some stuff where you later go home and you're laughing for an hour because you just can't comprehend what you just saw. But yeah, I'd say every day there's a part of me that misses it.
Is there any stories you want to share?
You told me once that when you were policing, you would wake up and look in the mirror and wonder if that was the day you were going to die or not.
That was an everyday thing.
And when you told me that, I think about that all the time now when I see police officers, and it just stuck with me when you said that.
Yeah, every morning when I would be shaving, because we had to shave every day, we weren't really allowed to have beards or anything, and I'd just look at myself and say, "Hey, are you okay with it being your last day today? Go tell your wife, make sure that you're okay with that today to continue doing what you're doing." And I think everybody that's in that profession does it in some shape or form, and they obviously accept that because they're there doing
I
it.
think there's some kind of freedom in knowing that each day's not guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned that recently.
Mm-hmm.
Could you say the same?
Yeah, yeah. I think that that's something you have to keep in your head every day because it may sway you into making decisions to do stuff that maybe you wouldn't usually do
Mm-hmm.
or try things you wouldn't usually try. Because people get really comfortable in their bubble and they're satisfied with what's going on, but I hate to say it, sometimes they're missing out on things because,
Because they're scared or worried.
yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I would say that there is something like that.
Is there anything that civilians should know that might help police or just have a different viewpoint on them?
I think that with today's outlook on policing, I think that people need to realize there's bad apples in everything, in every career field, in every um, professional aspect. There's bad apples, and to attack all of them because of the couple bad apples, I think is absolutely not progressive. If you want to be progressive with changing how policing is done and making um, more training available and more knowledge available to the officers, you have to get past those bad apples, get rid of them, right? I feel like all of them should be held accountable. Like I don't like dirty cops. I don't like bad people in any profession, bad lawyers, bad dentists, bad doctors, whatever, right? But if you really want to make a change, you need to just identify those bad apples, get rid of them, and offer more training. And if you want police officers to be what the world is wanting them to be, defunding them is the completely wrong thing to do, right? It's you need to train people more. That's like if you have a bad dentist, do you want him to go get more training, or do you want this his dentistry and the people practicing in his office to continue what he's doing? What would you do? Right? You'd probably go, hey, maybe we should just send you to some training. Maybe you're a little behind on some training, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's just my thing. Just look at it that way. There's always bad apples, and I hope that people, if anybody hears that, and if somebody wants to come at me for saying that, that's fine. But it's just a
kind of
simple
makes
thought.
sense if you think about it. In a company, if you guys are making so much money and all of a sudden they want to decrease your pay, the morale is going to be terrible.
Yeah.
You're not going to have productive anyone.
Yeah.
They're going to drag their feet walking through the door
Yeah.
and be looking for new jobs. So it makes sense.
I think that policing should be a very, very high paid field. because you're gonna get what you pay for.
True.
I mean, you don't go to McDonald's expecting a 5-star service. So if you're gonna pay people like that, you're gonna get what you pay for. That's my last take on that.
So, how did being a police officer teach you about empathy?
It's necessary. I mean, I saw people on their worst days, and you have to acknowledge that you're there because this is their worst day, or I mean, maybe they have a couple bad days, but whether they're the person that made a bad decision and they're going to go to jail, there's the victims on the other side. So I mean, saying empathy to bad guys and bad girls and bad people. Some people might be like, "Oh, why would you do that?" You still gotta have empathy either way, to all those involved. So, because if you don't, you're gonna run into problems with communication, rapport with the community. Fights will happen that are unnecessary.
And at the end of the day, they're human.
Exactly.
You could bend the spark in their future paths just by talking to them.
Mm-hmm.
And you took a criminal and all of a sudden made them really think about their actions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I have a story. So I arrested a lady for shoplifting at Walmart, and she had meth in her bag, in her bag that was found along with the stuff that she stole. And I treated her with respect. I was just nice, like, hey, and I did it with everybody. Hey, when I'm taking her in the jail, I'm like, hey, is there any station you want to listen to? Music station you want to bump or something before we go down there? Yeah, I want to listen to country or whatever. So I turn country music on, and then they'll start talking about, they get comfortable and they'll start talking about life. And sometimes they'll admit to other crimes. It's just really weird. But they'll just get comfortable and you talk and you have this conversation. And the jail's like 30 minutes away. So by the time we're at the jail, they would think that you're their best friend. And they're like, all right, let's go in there. I'm going like.
It makes it easier for you.
As opposed to just making someone mad and they're slamming their head against the window and just calling you every name there is, which some people still will do. But I just turn on like 104.1 really loud on them when they do that, so I can't hear them. And so she goes to jail and all this stuff, and then I start getting mail at my mailbox at work, and she wrote long letters to me from jail about when she gets out, she wants to be friends and all kind. Yeah, so that happened. And I think it was because of empathy, but I obviously she got the wrong idea about things. But
You're too nice.
yeah. So if anybody's like, "Oh man, he did it," no, I didn't. I have everything's recorded in the cars. There's cameras. There's everything from when we start all the way to the jail in the car to when she's into the jail. There's cameras. But anyways, it was it was very interesting. Needless to say, I ended up having like undercover cars that had to park by my house to make sure nobody showed up.
Oh my god.
It was kind of creepy. But.
I would be so different in that situation. I'd be like, why would you do this, Linda? You're driving her to the jail. Like, why would you do this? Just like judgy.
I didn't have to do much because usually when you pull a bag of meth out of someone's purse and they see you holding it and you have a badge, they go, dang it. Sorry, in the day that I just hit the mic. Bad. But yeah, that usually, you don't have to say anything. They know. Like, oh, dang it.
Is there something you will teach your daughter that you teach your wife or your family to keep them safe after your training? Just in normal, everyday life?
Yeah, be aware of your surroundings. I mean, so for instance, like, I don't know if you've seen it, but if you go to like a store, like Target or Walmart or something, and you're walking and you see people walking out and they're just looking down at their phone. There's been cases where people are watching those people.
I've had it happen.
Yeah, they're watching.
Target, and I had both girls, and there was this man on his cell phone, and it was when the U-Hauls were like a big thing, and there was one going around the Target. And I've trained the girls that they stay close to me.
Yeah.
So we started walking, and this man was on a cell phone, and he followed me all through the parking lot into the Target. I went all the way where the pastries are, and I stopped and faced the entrance.
Yeah.
Sure enough, he came in, and he's like looking, and I give him the mom stare, and he decided to kind of go straight. but he still followed me for over an hour.
Wow.
And when I went to check out, I noticed that he was there. He had no car, nothing. So I had the Target people walk me out, and they
Good call.
they kept him preoccupied. But it's true.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah. And just being aware of your surroundings too for you, like people will watch. Predators watch what you're doing. If you're not paying attention to anything, they're gonna come and hit you and take your money. They're gonna do things to you. So I would, I tell my wife, hey, if you can, carry your like a key that's kind of protruding through your hand whenever you're walking through a parking lot. In case somebody comes to you and they try to do something to you, you can just kind of stab them real quick with your key. Give them a nice little like, oh, this person's not messing around, kind of thing, and be loud. Be like, hey, get away from me, or just make a scene so people go, oh, this is what's going on. My wife would always laugh at me for this one, but I would only sit in certain spots in restaurants, like I still do today, and knowing where the exits are to get out fast. Same thing applies to stores. I'm always looking up to see where there's exits, and as soon as I get in, I like even if I'm like in a big box store, I look up and see where there's exit signs pointing where I can get out in case something really bad happens. So, yeah,
I've never thought about any of this.
Really?
No, I'm like completely oblivious.
Well, and maybe it's because I have daughters. You think of things a little differently. You have to tell them, hurry up, get in the car so I can lock the doors.
yeah,
Walk faster because there's someone walking behind us.
yeah,
And it's sad you have to kind of teach them to be aware at a young
Mhm.
age, but it's worth it.
yeah, yeah. You'll never lose teaching them, survival stuff. And it sounds kind of crazy to say survival stuff, but
Yeah.
people bring up all the stuff that's happening today, right? Like you have like, unfortunate events that happen with violence and guns and everything else. But people need to realize this has been going on since the existence of man, right? There's predators. There's, it's always comes down to the sheep and the wolves, right? And then you have the shepherds. So you kind of have that dynamic is always at work,
Mm-hmm.
right? We are always fighting that, and people want to place blame on a lot of things and stuff like that. But what you can do instead of focusing a lot of energy on that is having yourself ready for when that kind of stuff happens. How are you gonna deal with it? I've even had conversations with my wife about tourniquets and belts and how to use them if you get a wound. Even because you can just get a wound anywhere, right? You can be out hanging out with your friends and you slip and fall, and all of a sudden you're bleeding out on your leg. Yeah, how are you going to deal with that? Like that's a problem. Does somebody know something? Yeah, maybe throw a belt on there, tighten it, make a tourniquet so it stops bleeding.
I feel like we might have to do a class on all this like safety
You've never done
things.
a self-defense class?
I've never done a
Oh my
self-defense
god,
class.
you got to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
No.
fun. You get to beat up on a marshmallow man.
Oh, okay.
A marshmallow. Yeah, it's a perfect way to put it. Yeah, that makes me laugh.
He's totally padded, and he's
Gosh,
just
I wish I would have used that back when I was an officer. That would have been awesome. Because those guys that came in with those suits would always beat us up.
They
pretty
look like
bad.
a marshmallow man.
We should do it. I'm gonna put it on our to-do list.
Okay. It would be
But-
fun for
yeah.
all of us.
But I do worry about you guys because we're in a dark little corner over here at
Mhm.
Skinology, and
Yeah.
some of the girls leave late. So
Yeah,
I
do
do
the
think
buddy
about it.
system. Always have eyes on each other and walk out. And
I have my system. I'm not going to share it because
Oh.
I don't need any viewers.
She's
Called a
loaded.
clock. Just kidding.
Hi, I'm Chelsea, Keto Half-Asser. This podcast is brought to you by the Blacktop Grill. I recommend you try the delicious keto options, including the cheese-wrapped gourmet dogs and the taquitos. Yum.
So where does marriage and family fit into the equation overall? Do you guys do date nights? Do
Yeah.
you spend days with your littles? How do you?
Yeah, date nights they're so important. They're so fun. You got to do it. I mean, we don't do it as much as we used to because we got a baby now and she's very active. So no, you gotta make time for each other. I know. I mean, we love our babies and more than the world, but you still have to take care of each other. You have to be there for each other and communicate and love one another. And marriage, I think it's like one of the best things ever because you got to find the right person. That doesn't mean everybody gets married and found the right person, right? seen some marriages where I'm like, oh man, okay. But no, when you find somebody and you have a good understanding, you just don't have to worry about the game no more. You know, any of that awkward stuff. It's just, I don't know. It's fun spending life with somebody else.
It's like a partnership.
And having their outlook on things too is awesome. Like hearing how they see things, their perception of things. It's really cool.
Have these two softened you up?
Oh yeah. Especially my daughter. Oh yeah. Yeah.
You say they do.
Yeah.
Is it scary?
Yeah. It's crazy this little being can control you so much. Like you think that you're like in charge of the house until you have a child.
This is true.
Then you're not. Like the child is like if
The
we're-
boss.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like hey, I'm hungry. Feed me.
Yeah.
Like that's you're not going, hey, you're gonna eat right now. Here you go. No, it's not how it works. So it's just now having my wife now and a little daughter doing that. It's like not that my wife bosses me around a lot, but she has a lot of influence in my life. So now my daughter does now. So
Yeah, you'll have two telling you exactly how it is.
yeah. See that's probably what's gonna happen next because my wife's like, oh, I want another kid, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's another girl.
You're definitely going to have another daughter.
Probably.
I can like see that and feel that already.
Because our family, like our family is dominantly males that has come from relationships and marriages, and I got a daughter out of nowhere, so I'm like, this is interesting.
Daughters are great though because they can do literally everything. If you want her to play a sport just like a boy,
Mm-hmm.
she can do it and
Mhm.
dominate it.
Yeah,
Same way.
yeah, and I am so glad that I have a daughter. I wouldn't change it for the world. It's just being outnumbered as a guy, you're a little worried because you now know that the control in the household is not yours at all.
That's funny. So how often do you guys do a date night? Like monthly, couple months?
At least monthly. At
Okay.
least sometimes we'll have a couple weeks. We'll go. Every 2 weeks we'll go out on a date, and sometimes even if it's a small little time gap, she works from home. Sometimes we'll call each other, hey, what are you doing for lunch? Do you want to go sit down and eat lunch real quick? And so we'll meet somewhere and we'll have lunch, and that'll be our date.
Yeah.
Our anniversary trip we took to Rimrock, Arizona, and we brought the baby with us, but her family came and watched the child at the B&B for a couple hours, and we just went to Sedona and had lunch together, and that was our
was
date.
your
Dates
date
are
night.
different.
Yeah.
Now, for sure.
Has being an entrepreneur kind of helped the family dynamic where you have more freedom?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, when you can dictate your schedule a lot more, it helps a lot, especially with like doctor's appointments and the stuff you need to take care of. Yeah, because before I couldn't just leave. Like, hey, just gonna leave the people here without anybody to
Do
call.
you feel like do you feel like it's made the relationship with you and your wife better than with the police academy?
Yes. Yeah.
So
I'm
you have
home.
more time, right?
I'm home way more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not.
Stress.
Yeah, I'm not as. Yeah, I'm still stressed, but it's a different kind of stress. I think it's more of the stress I was dealing with there is you're still trying to comprehend and go through what you experienced that day, or your adrenaline's coming back down. Like my wife always did a really good job when I get home. She knew that I needed like an hour to decompress, which meant like I kind of just would, take a shower and just kind of chill. I'd be quiet for a little while and kind of sit there and get through everything, and then I would move into, husband mode. So, but with this, I don't really got to do that. It's pretty much I can get home and.
You don't come to LTD and think, today I might die.
No.
Hopefully.
Yeah, no. Unless I plug something in wrong, then
So where do you see the future of LTD Media?
I see this company in several cities throughout the U.S. Satellites of it. I think the model that we're building, I think, can be very useful for a lot of communities. And the stuff that we're doing, even with the groups that we've built, we're kind of seeing how those are playing into the community. And that's the ultimate goal for me, is to have it in different places. My next spot that I want to get this is going to be Queen Creek, Arizona. is I want to get a satellite there. So if you're listening and you're considering maybe wanting to open a branch of this, then reach out and we can talk. But yeah, that's the next place because it's a similar kind of setup like Marana. Like Queen Creek's really exploding and they're building all these, like they just barely got a police department there in that town. So there's a lot of growth still to happen, and we want to be involved in that growth and like helping with that growth, much like we're doing here in the town of Marana.
Is that where Wendy's lashing out of? Queen Creek?
Mm-mm.
No? Oh, never mind.
What does living the dream mean solely to you?
And where did the name come from?
So the name came from just conversation we had, like people, you talk to people at work, oh, I'm living the dream. Are you? Really? Does anybody go, like, do you ever confront somebody like, oh, I'm just living the dream? Really? Tell me about it. What's the dream? What is it?
Have you done that to people?
No. I'd love to now.
Maybe you should.
I should.
You should be like one of those random stories on your Instagram feed of people on the street.
Yeah. Hey, are you living the dream? Yeah. Okay. What is that? Are you? So living the dream for me means being in a position where you have a lot of control over what you're doing and you're happy and you're satisfied. And when I say control what you're doing, I'm talking about emotionally, physically, mentally. Like you're there. Like that's the dream. You're where you pictured, or you're on the road to getting to where you pictured. A lot of people will start businesses, and a lot of our clients will come in and they have no clue what to do and how to get started. And I can literally sit down with them and go, this is a great way. I'm not saying this is the ultimate and perfect way to do it, but hey, I can get you started and you can be making money tomorrow and have it in your bank account. Have a website and a invoicing system and e-com, all that stuff can be ready for you tomorrow if you want. Because otherwise most people aren't going to know. And that's legitimately what we've done. I have a client in North Carolina, walked in here, was like, I'm moving from here. I want to start a business in North Carolina renting dumpsters. I have no idea what to do. So I said, okay, just go get your LLC, go get a bank account, and I'll do the rest for you. And we did, and now he's making like $40,000 a month.
Wow.
Doing dumpster rentals. So it's like that came from an idea, and he was just working a regular job before then. So if I asked, hey, are you living the dream? He's going to be like, yeah, I literally am. Like I planned this, I wanted this, I'm in control. Here I am.
Very cool. And we talked about how a lot of this whole business thing is self-learning, right? Self-education. You're kind of figuring things out. Do you have any business books that you love or recommend? Maybe like your top 3?
So I love Gary V's Crushing It, especially with the social media stuff and his like kind of how he sees, like seeing things through his lens and how you should be doing content all the time. Like I love how he really talks about that. Don't get caught up in like the super beautiful quality of it. Like just get it out.
Just get
there.
it out.
Because
Yeah.
he's really considering the algorithm stuff and I'm sure you can relate to this, but have you ever like focused really hard on a piece of content and you send it out and it does nothing?
Yes.
And then you do something just you didn't really try hard and you just built it really quick, or you took a photo or something and you send it out and it goes nuts.
Yes.
It's like that right there is like, well, I really don't have. I mean, you can be consistent and get a certain amount of activity consistently with quality stuff, but at the end of the day, if you put out more, the chances of you getting something, it's higher. So I like his outlook on that. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I think that's an important book to read to understand how money works. Because if you're going to get in business, you have to understand how money works. If you have no clue about that, then business is going to be really hard because you're either not going to be creating value, you're not going to be valuing yourself at the right spot, and you're going to get yourself in you're going to get debts that you don't want, right? So that's a huge one. The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by Maxwell. That's a huge one. I feel, in my opinion, that if you're going to start a business, you're jumping into a leadership role. And not just the people that are in there with you working, but the community itself. You're going to be a leader in the community. There's just, even if you're just going to meetings, sales, you're still like you have to have confidence and be a leader. So learning leadership, I think, is very important. I'm reading a book right now about sales. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's like 5 key points of sales. I can't remember the author's name, but it's a good one. Know how to sell. That's a hard one. Like if you've never sold before, it can get awkward. I mean, and you're gonna get rejected. So that book covers that. Like, hey, you're gonna get rejected. You're gonna suck at first. You're not gonna learn how to sell in like 2 weeks. That's just not gonna happen. It's gonna take time, just like anything else. And then the other one that I'm still working through that you put me onto is Robert Greene's
The
48 Laws of Power. Yeah. Whoa. Out of all those books, that is the craziest one.
It's crazy. I told you it was going to be like you're reading it and you're like, is this written by a psychopath? Is this book written by a crazy person? But like you can't stop.
Yeah. It's not only that is when you're reading the book, I don't know if it happens to you, but I have like these recollections of moments in my life where I saw those displays of power.
Mm-hmm. Whether you were doing it or receiving it.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, dang it. I
Yeah.
wish I wish I was back in time because I'd be like, I'd call that out or counter that power move.
I
in
see what
something.
you're doing,
Yeah.
that power move.
Yeah.
That one's a little dark, but I do think people should read that one. And then the Gary Vee one I love. I just gifted that one to Aliana because she's trying to get her aesthetics career up and running.
Nice.
And then Rich Dad Poor Dad, it was the book that my husband read that like flipped the light switch on for him.
Yeah.
So I good recommendations. Thank you.
Yeah, it did the same to me. I'll be honest, I didn't have a very firm understanding of finances and money before that. My wife did. She's the one that recommended it. So
I think that one's more about mindset too, because it's like the rich dad versus the poor dad. And you see like the things that rich dad is doing differently than poor dad.
Yeah. Well, if you take just your basic standard things that they teach you in school, and you go into business without understanding that, like having that mindset, it's not going to work because you're expecting people to pay you or expecting things to happen for you or to go clock in, and then that's it. No.
I see that as like a lack mentality.
Yeah.
Which is everywhere if you pay attention.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of women listeners, and I think it would be informative to know what it's like being a man in this world, in this generation.
You know, 1 in 4 households in the U.S. doesn't have a father in the house. And that's a staggering statistic to me. And it's a statistic as a man in today's generation that I don't want to accept. And it frustrates me. I think the census said 19.5 million kids in the U.S., the father's not in the household for them. And I know that things happen in relationships and in the household that might cause it to become a broken home on both sides, whether it's the female involved or the male. But dude's got to step up. And that's just unacceptable. Like, I don't. So I talked to my grandmother the other day, and she was telling me about her dad. And her dad would wake up. He had 4 kids. He was a single dad. He had 4 kids. His mother would help watch him. He would walk 5 miles to work in the morning, work construction all day, and this is here in Tucson, and then walk 5 miles home. And he would do it, and he would do it, and he would do it, and he took care of him, and he loved him, and he did what he needed to do. And I hate to say it, but a lot of dudes nowadays, I can't see dudes doing that. And the mentality of guys, I think we need to be stronger. And I'm not talking physically or like brute force. I'm talking all the way around. You need to be stronger. I think guys need to be stronger at home. Way stronger at home. They need to help out at home. They need to take care of things, take responsibility of things at home. So when you ask me that question, being a guy, that's just a lot of stuff that I've seen lacking as a guy in today's generation. I don't think guys should be proud of a lot of stuff that we've done lately.
No.
and that what we continue to do. A lot of problems that we're seeing in the world are because of guys. And if you can't accept that and you're angry at me for saying that, that's okay. We can have a conversation and dialogue about it.
I
And
think it's good. I think men need to make men accountable
exactly.
because when women say it, it's a nagging.
Yeah.
It's you're being some type of way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm like this perfect guy or anything like that. I've definitely made my mistakes, but I've gotten to the point in my life where I can recognize that 1 in 4 households don't have a father present at home. Like, what is that? Step up. You know, we can't have that going on. So I think as a guy, I'm not going to tell you anything positive about where we're at in today's generation. And I hopefully people can learn from that, or some guy hears that and goes, "Yeah, you know what? You know what? I couldn't do better at home. I could do better at this. Like going and playing video games for 10 hours at home while you're with your family. Like, come on." Like that's just crazy to me. So yeah, that's where that's where I'm at with guys in our generation.
So, with that said, where does faith fit into your life?
Faith has an important role in my life. It is something I use for and believe in, and it helps guide me through decisions. And it's taught me patience. Growing up, I was not a very patient person. I expected things to happen right away, and if it didn't, I was pissed. So I think growing my faith has shown me that we need to be patient, and we do need to love one another. Like it's really like I see stuff happen. I get frustrated and I'll express frustrations, but at the end of the day, like that's my neighbor, and I need to still love them, and I feel responsible now to not being like a preacher or anything crazy like that, but if I can provide like some kind of insight or something that might make somebody think like I do, not tying in the Bible, I'm not going to read somebody's scriptures or anything, but like just giving some insight about how somebody's feeling, like against somebody, like, hey, you got to understand, we don't know what they're going through. They're still your neighbor. You got to love them and accept them, kind of thing. So I that's kind of how I look at a lot of things now. Before I didn't. So I think it's very important.
What's the coolest place you've traveled?
That's hard. Probably Kona, Hawaii. It's crazy. So where we landed, it looks like here. Like it's dry desert, and then you drive a couple miles up the island and it turns into rainforest. Like there's mist in the air, and Jurassic Park, you know what I mean? It looks like Jurassic. I was always messing with, wow, there's dinosaurs. We rented a Jeep and like drove through like this wilderness area there and everything.
I know Jurassic Park is filmed.
I think it is filmed there.
Oh, yeah. Well, so yeah, there you go. That's why it looks the same. So we actually saw a piece of where the Jurassic Park was filmed on Oahu. There's like this like weird like horseshoe kind of area on the backside that you can tell was where there was that like Jurassic Park stuff out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, you feel like you're in Jurassic Park. Like there's just trees everywhere, and it's just beautiful. The people are just wonderful. The food is amazing.
Seafood?
No, like the chicken, how they prepare chickens, like the teriyaki
okay.
chickens and sauces they use, the way they cook pork, stuff like that. The food's delicious.
Island food.
Yeah.
I picture seafood, but I don't think sometimes it's not.
It's like island.
Yeah.
Okay.
It looks like a movie everywhere you look. Like the ocean's just there. You're like, wow. So, but yeah, that's definitely my favorite place. And then next would be Turks and Caicos.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's a
So
nice
like blue
place.
water, clear water.
Completely clear.
Yeah.
And the fish in the water, they just come up to you, and it's really creepy. But there'll just be fish right next. You look down and there's fish.
Wow.
Like it's beautiful.
So what about Tucson? What are a few of your favorite places here?
Like to eat.
Just overall.
Just overall. I like Agua Caliente a lot. That place is really beautiful. I also like Sabino Canyon. I like going and hiking there. That's a great spot to go. Knock out a hike. I wouldn't do it this time of year though. Like that's just crazy. I don't know why people do that. I don't know. Mount Lemon. That's just the easiest way to go cool off and see the whole city. It's always great. And then I'm trying to think here. There's a lot of good spots here. I think the Saguaro National Park is pretty insane. I just barely saw like you go down Kinney. Like I just barely saw like that actual place.
Isn't it crazy? You think you've
You-
seen enough saguaros, and then you drive that way, and you're like, oh no.
Yeah, and then have you ever walked through the platform where they have like the building, and you walk through the tunnel area between the buildings?
No.
There's like a national park building there,
Hmm.
and if you walk on the other side of it, it is just this like, it doesn't even look real. It's like this mountain with tons of saguaros and like lines that go up,
Mhm.
and you're just like, that's a lot of cactus. That's why they come here. I see. So, but yeah, no, that place is beautiful.
What about restaurants?
There's so much good food here. Oh man, I'm gonna give you where we're like feeling like probably over the last year, and Gabe's place is definitely one of them. Blacktop Grill.
The Blacktop Grill.
If you go and look at his transactions, you're gonna see Dave Samorano. If you go in there,
That's amazing.
or the wife Alexandra Summer, she's obsessed with the Vampiro tacos.
Mhm.
She's like, she'll just talk about them. Oh, I want them like that. I'm like, I can't make those. You're gonna have to go buy those.
No.
There's no way. Charo Vida is another favorite of ours when we're looking for something light, and like it's got a nice environment too. It's
It's beautiful in there.
yeah, it's really cool. You're right by the mountains if you sit outside, so we dig that. Sace is another. We prefer the one at the St. Augustine Mercado down there. That and then because then you can walk right over to Presta, right? Is that what it's called? Yeah, you can just. We love going there and getting food from Sace and then going to Presta afterwards. I've even gotten a drink at the plate, like the bar that's there, but I forgot the name
It's
of it.
Augustine
Augustine.
Kitchen.
Yeah, it's a nice. That whole little spot's pretty awesome.
Random last question from me.
Mhm.
What was the last gift you gave someone?
The last gift I gave someone. Well, $150.
Okay.
And it's for my wife's brother who's graduating high school today.
Nice. That's a good
So
gift.
We're giving him. He's going to go to the Dominican Republic to teach English
Wow.
right out of high school. He's going to go help teach English. So we're giving him some money to help out with like things he needs down there. And then he's going to come back, and then he'll go on a mission for 2 years, and then I think he's going to end up going to BYU or something like that. So, yeah, we found like that was a good gift for him.
That was a good gift.
So before we close this up, could you leave our viewers with a dad joke?
So I felt like it'd be a disservice if I didn't bring this book on board here.
What is the book?
It's exceptionally bad dad jokes. So frightfully awful yet wonderfully spiffing. So I actually had this book on some of my first podcast programs that I did. So it's kind of like a historic thing and for me, and it's nostalgic. And so I'm gonna find one in here. Okay, here we go. This kind of applies. What did Daddy Spider say to Baby Spider?
What?
You spend too much time on the web.
It's good.
That was a good one. Can you go ahead and pimp yourself out?
Yeah. So if you're looking for any help with starting a business or you need some digital advertising done, we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube, Google, all that stuff. We can help you out. If you're looking for videos to promote your business, we do that. It's one of our specialties. Social media management, all the social media advertising stuff, consulting. We offer e-commerce, website design. I personally I'm involved with the community. I'm on the Citizens Forum for the town of Marana. So if you have any issues or ideas or something you maybe want to put in my brain to kind of talk about there, would be great. And yeah, just follow me on social media. I'm doing some quirky things every once in a while. I'll post some videos. My brother will join in once in a while. Follow me on Instagram, David S. I just got back on Twitter. I'm going to try to start building the company stuff. But the main thing I ran on there for was to watch Elon be crazy. And then that's like good entertainment for me. Like I can eat popcorn and just kind of because people it's just crazy. And then yeah, find me on Facebook and stuff, and follow our groups, follow our page. You'll find something that you like. There's plenty of blogs that we have there that have insight about starting a business and might answer some questions you have on there.
Cool.
So.
Thanks for joining us
Thank
for
you.
episode
Thank you
1,
for having me.
season 2,
Yeah,
and
it
the
was
first guy.
Grateful, and it was a privilege. I'm really honored. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.